Subterranea, a really interesting game that I don't know if I've ever heard anybody talk about. It is, I guess, similar to like Lunar Lander, if you know that game where you're the little triangle and you go and you're using your fuel up to try to land somewhere else. It's similar to that in the sense that you are in a very heavy, tiny vehicle that has a limited amount of fuel, except there are things trying to kill you. In my opinion, this is a brutal game. The physics are kind of unforgiving. The enemies are unforgiving. It is fun, but it is really difficult for me. There are several games like this on, like electronic things like WiiWare and Xbox Live or whatever those things are called these days. There's lots of games like this now. I think Pixel Junk, maybe. I should really just stop saying things like, it's probably this or probably that, when I have no idea. But I'm doing what I was told. I'm pointing and I'm shooting. I am not doing tons of research or anything like that. Cool Spot is another game that I think is great and is also on the Super Nintendo. It's a little bit different on the Super Nintendo, but this is the version that I played as a kid. And man, what a piece of 90s memorabilia. Like, because you're a mascot, first off. You're this little spot, which is the red spot on 7-Up, where 7-Up says 7, then there's a red spot and it says up. And this is just the spot. This is kind of like a run and gun as well, except it's a bit more platformy, so you shoot like fizz bubbles like out of your hands. This one is cool. I like this one a lot. A lot of mascot games aren't great, but I think this one is great. It might just be my nostalgia talking, but it's got some great little levels where you're always tiny and you're fighting crabs and mice and that sort of thing. And man, just look, he's got sunglasses. Like, look, he's a cool guy. Don't you want to be cool, like Cool Spot, and support 7-Up? And I think this is the last one that I have a case for, Sonic Spinball. Another one I used to rent. Another one which, is it a good game? I don't think so. It's an oddity, but it's a lot of fun. It's a pinball game, except you are Sonic as the pinball. These aren't very accurate screenshots. This is more accurate here, where you're this tiny little blue ball, and there are objectives like collecting items and that sort of thing. So it does set it apart from other pinball games. Not one that I would strongly recommend, but if you have it in a collection or something, feel free to check it out. And speaking of collections, this is a really interesting cartridge here. It's 6 games in one. It's an official cart, so it's not, one of those 301 carts from China. It's 6 kind of bestsellers. So it's got Sonic the Hedgehog, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Revenge of Shinobi, Columns, and Super Hang-On. So what's great about this is it's 6 games in one. I don't think this is very expensive. And it's kind of got a nice little smorgasbord, right? Like, it's got a platformer, it's got an old beat-em-up, another beat-em-up there, a ninja game, a puzzle game, a racing game. So if you can get this pack, I think it's better than buying all these 6 games, obviously. And it's kind of just neat. It's very 90s again. It's spelling it without a C there. It's kind of got like that spray paint aesthetic. Cool little oddity. You are going to see some stickers on these. I don't know. I don't usually take them off. Like, none of these are really worth that much, and I kind of like knowing that I bought this in 2010 for $3. So that's worth it for me to leave it on. Kid Chameleon is an interesting game, as the name implies and as the picture has here. So you are a kid that has really weird jump physics, like super weird. He's very floaty and can jump really high. But in each level, you have like a new ability you can get. So like in the first level, I think you can become a knight, and I think in the next level you can become a ninja. So it's kind of like a variety show of powers, and if you get hit too many times, then you turn back into the kid. It is a decent game, but the physics are really weird. So The Adventures of Batman and Robin. So this is my Batman. Like when people talk about their favorite Batman, The Adventures of Batman and Robin Batman, he's my favorite. Voiced by, I think Kevin Conroy was his name. Yeah. And this game I remember playing at a friend's house a lot. It's not a fantastic game, so it's not a AAA title, but it is decent, and I do have a lot of nostalgia for it. It's got some interesting perspectives, so like it'll have a building in the foreground that goes all the way to the top of the screen, and it has parallax scrolling and that sort of stuff. So not bad, but it is, as you would imagine, a beat 'em up, so basically go from left to right, punch out baddies. Space Harrier 2. Not as good as Space Harrier 1, but it's still pretty decent. This game is kind of another one that's kind of a SEGA staple. Like if you think of classic SEGA, you think of Space Harrier, which was, I believe, an arcade game that has really interesting graphics where it's all like those like 90s, or not 90s, those 80s like lines. Everything is a grid, and it's all coming at you. So the graphics are pretty impressive, at least in the first one. And it is also brutal, where you're flying around with a jetpack and shooting forward. It's kind of like Star Fox, I would say. Not as good as Star Fox, but I still really like it, and has some really nice kind of poppy, energetic music. Two Crude Dudes. Yeah, is this ever 80s or 90s? Basically, it's a beat 'em up where you have two dudes that are, kind of like punks. So they have like mohawks, and they're wearing cut off sleeves and that sort of thing. Not an amazing game, but it is decently fun with two players. And I keep it because I think it's dumb. I think this is a dumb game, but it's fun to play. And isn't that what games are all about? We have Revenge of Shinobi, which is one of the games inside the 6-pack. This one's kind of interesting historically because maybe not the creator, but someone high up kind of drew really quickly these enemies they wanted in the game. And he drew stuff like Spider-Man, and I think some other Marvel characters and DC characters, maybe Godzilla or something. And then the people who turned those into sprites kind of left them the way they were. So some versions have like Spider-Man in them as like an enemy. But basically it's you're a ninja game, so you move from left to right and throw shurikens and use a katana and all sorts of things like that. Another kind of Sega staple. And then I have here Rocket Knight Adventure, $7 in 2001? Okay. Rocket Knight Adventure is great, little platformer where you are an armadillo, I think, and you have like a little jetpack, and your jetpack allows you to like fly and like bounce off of things, kind of like a little pinball. Again, one of the kind of colorful 90s mascots. That one's actually quite a bit of fun. Okay, so this game, Pac-Man 2, New Adventures, is very interesting. I used to rent it all the time and actually love it. I'm pretty sure no one else likes this game except me. It is not a puzzle game. Well, it sort of is. It's kind of like a point-and-click adventure game where Pac-Man kind of does his own thing. So he'll like walk left to right, and if he sees a dog, he'll go, whoa, and he'll run away. The animation in this is great. Pac-Man is very lively. He's got tons of silly faces, and he whistles, and he does all these little things. It's definitely an oddity. I wouldn't call it Pac-Man 2. I'm not sure why they did that. But you have like a little slingshot that you can use to shoot. So I want him to look at the mail. So you shoot a power pellet or whatever at the mailbox, and he goes, huh? And walks over to it and checks the mail. I love this game. I don't care what people say. Virtua Racing. You can tell this is a different sized cart. What I actually like about this is how it looks in your Genesis, because these other games, when you put them in the Genesis, they kind of get like cut off like there, But Virtua Racing, because it's so big, you can actually see it like popping out of your Genesis, and it's got like this cool design. I think this one just looks great. Why it's so big is because it has extra technology in it. So kind of how like Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo has the Mode 7 chip or some other chip in it. Virtua Racing has more technology in it to allow it to have rudimentary 3D graphics. So I remember playing this over at a friend's house. I believe his name was Chris. And I thought it was really cool at the time to like be driving around in 3D. It's super rudimentary, all like very basic polygons, but the sense of speed in this is fantastic. Like especially having it on a home console, like you really feel like you're going like 150, 200 kilometers per hour whenever you're driving. It's definitely, the Virtua series is definitely like a Sega classic as well, because I believe the Virtua games all came out on like, was it AM2 that did a lot of the Virtua games? So like Virtua Fighter and that sort of thing. Again, that's probably wrong. I really like it. If you are used to modern racing games, it's going to make your eyes bleed. You're not going to enjoy it. Hockey. EA Sports Hockey. It's a hockey game. I have it because I had it as a kid, and so I just haven't gotten rid of it. Tough Man Contest. So, looking at this title, you would imagine that Tough Man Contest would be like, you know, like those strongman competitions where you're like lifting huge tires or lifting weights or something. But it's a boxing game. It's very similar to like Super Punch-Out, where your main character is a wireframe and you can see through them. The difference is this isn't nearly as fun as Punch-Out, I think. It is more, I guess, realistic, where you don't have like really silly characters. They're just kind of basic people, and I feel like it's more difficult. And I think this is the last EA cart that I have. And if you weren't aware, this yellow thing doesn't do anything. This is kind of the result of, I believe, EA like backwards engineered the Genesis, reverse engineered the Genesis, so that they could make their own games without buying the Sega Genesis licensing and like their expensive dev kit and that sort of thing. So this has a really interesting history. There's a few YouTube videos on it, I'm sure, or articles, but the history of EA on the Genesis is an interesting one. So I would recommend looking it up. The Menacer Cart. It is 6 games, which really basic things like, oh, shoot the bug sort of thing. And it's for the Menacer gun. So I believe the game on Super Nintendo, like the equivalent, I believe it's called Super Scope 6 or something like that. So really basic, like target games. It's not great, but there's not actually that much that you can play the gun games on. Okay, Mortal Kombat 2. I knew I had Mortal Kombat 2 somewhere. This one I think is definitely better than Mortal Kombat 1. If for nothing else, it has way more characters. I think the first one only has like less than 10, I think. But this one has more. Not much else to say. If you know what Mortal Kombat 1 is, just a fighting game, then you know what that one is. Bananza Brothers. This one is interesting too. It's kind of like, I guess, like an elevator action kind of puzzly game. So you're these two brothers and you're entering like an apartment building or a mansion or something. You can go upstairs and hide in closets, and your goal is to steal paintings, I believe. Lots of fun. I really like this one. Golden Axe. Golden Axe is a beat-em-up, except instead of being like people, ex-cops on the street punching people, like in the other game I just mentioned. I can't remember, Streets of Rage. You are fantasy people, so you're like a dwarf or a human warrior or a woman, and you I don't know what, she might also be a warrior. You can ride animals and cast spells and that sort of thing. I think this is a great game for 2-player. 1-player, it does get a little tiring fast. I think that's true of a lot of beat-em-ups. Comic Zone. A game that I believe is more style than substance. Meaning, it looks really cool, the idea is really cool, but I'm not sure how good it actually holds up. I think it's really neat, though, because you get to be a, like this guy here, you know, 90s action hero dude, where you're actually inside of a comic, so you can see the borders and like the words and stuff, and you can flip from like one box to the other. So it is like playing inside of a comic, which is pretty neat. Sonic and Knuckles, I don't own too much stuff that's just for collector's value or for nostalgia or stuff that's just neat. Sonic and Knuckles is definitely one of them, where it's got this thing called lock-on technology, where you would take another Sonic game like Sonic 1 here and pop it in, and then you could play, or maybe not Sonic 1, but definitely Sonic 2 and 3, where you could pop it in and then you can play as Knuckles in these older games. And I thought that was the coolest thing as a kid. I still think it's cool that you can do that, where it's kind of like DLC, I suppose, a DLC character. But even if you don't have the other Sonic games, this is its own game by itself, Sonic and Knuckles. And then I do have the first Sonic game here. I don't need to talk to you about Sonic. Sonic's great. Sonic 1 doesn't have the spin dash, but still a great game altogether. And then Sonic 2, more Sonic. This one is the one I liked better as a kid because it is kind of two-player. Like, a second player can play as Tails, but the camera always follows Sonic. So if Tails flies off screen, then Tails will disappear and then eventually fly back. But, it's Sonic 2. Like, what more can I say? And this game here is Ghouls and Ghosts. I remember playing Ghosts and Goblins over at my friend Lucas's house on the Super Nintendo, and I thought that was tons of fun. So next time I was out at the mall, I saw like a blister pack version of this. And what that means is, like, it didn't come with a case or anything, so it must have been maybe refurbished or returned. But they used to sell them just like, how if you were to buy like, a pair of scissors or a memory card, like a little card, it comes in like this big plastic thing that's like vacuum sealed. That's what I mean by a blister pack. It was a little bit cheaper, but oh boy, awesome art. And this game is a lot of fun. Another arcade classic. You go from left to right. You're a knight. I think your name's Arthur, actually. And what I really liked about it as a kid, other than the music and it's kind of campy, I suppose. Like, it's kind of cartoonish. I also liked that you can get lots of different weapons, and also your armor can like fall off. So the more you get hurt, the more your armor flies off, and then in the end you're just running around like in your boxers. And as a kid, that's like the funniest thing. It's because I remember going to the mall and wanting to buy this game, but I was like, Ghosts and Ghouls. I thought it was Ghosts and Goblins. So I called my friend Lucas on a payphone and asked him, and I was like, well, it's probably close enough. And I remember my mom giving me like a quarter to do that. So that's all the Genesis games that I own. I do also have this thing called an Everdrive, which some people are probably like, oh no, you're a terrible person. But essentially it is a game that has an SD card in it, and it has basically every Genesis game and Mega Drive game on here. The reason I got this is because when I was a kid, I loved this game called Crusader of Senti. I think in PAL regions it's called Soleil. And I really wanted that game, and I think at the time it was like a $60 or $70 game. I think now it's like $400 or $500. It's insane. But this cart was cheaper than that. And I also wanted Contra Hardcore, which I think was another like $50, $60 game. But this was like $40 or $50. And I just said, you know what? Like, I'm kind of done buying cartridges for the Genesis. It's not worth it to me. I wanted this instead of just playing a ROM, because I feel like if you just play a ROM like on your computer, it's not the same as like popping this thing in your Genesis and hearing it click and using the old controllers and that sort of thing. There's flashcards for tons of systems, Game Boy and 64 and stuff. But this is one of the reasons why I don't bother collecting for the Genesis anymore. I'm probably never going to buy any more games for it, unless, of course, I find another guy in the street with $2 games. So that's one reason why I don't buy Genesis games anymore. Another one is because, like, there's so many Genesis collections. Like, you can buy so many of these games on just online. I don't know how many are actually in here. I feel like it's like 60, 50, like look at all those games. And I think these are okay versions. They're not perfect. You don't get to use your Sega Genesis controller. But there's tons of collections out for Genesis stuff, and most of them are pretty decent. So the fact that a cartridge, some of these cartridges that I showed you, I don't know how many of them are actually worth anything, but I feel like a couple of them are probably worth pretty decent, like Contra Hardcore or something, or Gunstar Heroes. But I mean, as long as I can plug it into my system and use my controller and play it on my TV. So I know it's kind of like blasphemy or whatever, but yeah, I'm done. This is basically my Genesis collection, my Genesis library, and I thought that this was okay. I might do another one of these, but let me know what you think of this 2008 style video if you want me to do another one. Let me know. Like, people don't really comment on YouTube anymore, but comments are really helpful because they, I believe, help the algorithm, even with subscribers, because a lot of people are subscribed to like 200 people, right? So YouTube can't show them all. So it helps with finding the other subscribers, finding my videos, but also it helps me know, what you like or dislike about a video. And it also gives me a little bit of inspiration to to keep going and doing these things. So before I ramble on too much, I'll just end it here and say this has been Silver Mongoose Videos, and remember, classic gaming never gets old.